Happy Halloween, everybody! Chris Pearson here with you. It is exciting for another week of the FFSR. This is the Halloween episode. I always have fun with this one. This is going to be fun. I mean, this week is the week 9 NFL preview. We are separating the tricks from the treats in this episode, as we always do. First off, again, I just want to give you the update video yesterday, and I want to apologize for kind of the lateness in this video. It's been a crazy week with the scheduling and being busy and working late nights, and so I really didn't get a chance to really research and record videos. So for that, I definitely apologize for that. I always have fun with this. You guys know that. This is what it's all about. You guys don't know what I am. Because my fantasy team is named the NightCrawlers, I had to embrace my inner spider this year. So, so that's what I am for this year. So I've had a lot of fun with it. My team is doing really well. Got a win last week. My team has now won 3 straight games. So I'm sitting 5-3 in the playoff hunt. I think one spot behind. Well, actually, I'm 1 point behind in the wild card standings. So very much in the hunt. Very excited. I'm playing the best team in the league this week, the best record at 7-1. So I need my players to do really, really well. But hopefully you guys are in the same direction, or you're very close, or at least in the hunt. This is also a very big week because there are a lot of teams again on bye this week. This is another one of those weeks where we have 6 teams on a bye. So, Atlanta, Buffalo, Detroit, Green Bay, Tennessee, and one more I can't remember. But so you're missing a lot of. Bottom line is you're missing a lot of guys. You're missing a lot of guys. Remember, you're relying on a week-by-week basis. You're not going to have Aaron Rodgers or Jordy Nelson, Randall Cobb, the Buffalo defense. Kyle Orton, if you've been using him as a fill-in, Matt Ryan, Julio Jones. You're not going to have these guys this week. So we need to find guys that are going to step up and, maybe by week replacement fill-ins that can actually play well this week. So we're going to go ahead and dive right in. As always, we have the numbers to help us out as well. And I also kind of did a game-by-game breakdown to help me out. I need my hands. It's not exactly easy when you have, spider ends at your end of your hands, unfortunately. So, I apologize if my antennae are messed up. These are like really, really flimsy. So yeah, but I don't think that's gonna stay. But whatever. But we're gonna go ahead and dive right into it. So to highlight some guys here for the week, this thing is gonna bug the heck out of me. Bug. See what I did there? All right, let's go ahead and dive right in. Starting with the quarterback position, as we always do. Your top 5 are pretty much no-brainers, either based on the fact that they're consistent or the matchup is just amazing. Top option, obviously, the Denver-New England game. I mean, if you have guys, Peyton Manning's projected for 31 points this week. I think I suggested, on here, to start, everybody of skill players in the Denver-New England game, because that game is going to be a shootout. It's going to be an extreme game. Peyton Manning, you're starting Tom Brady. You're starting your skill players mostly on Denver and New England. You're not starting the defenses, the DSTs. Now, the only ones I'm not real sold on in that game, and I'll mention this when we get to the running backs in the White House, I'm not really sold on a couple guys in that matchup, but the quarterbacks, for gosh sakes, it's Peyton Manning versus Tom Brady. They've met 15 times in the past. Brady has the head-to-head edge 10-5, but this is being played in New England. The weather's not going to be pretty, according to what I've heard. Heck, the weather's not pretty here today. It's been terrible outside. It's been gray and rainy mixed with snow, so it's not exactly pretty. So that sounds like what the weather's going to be on Sunday in New England. So, but Peyton, still thrives. He still plays well against Brady regardless usually. So you're definitely starting him. Russell Wilson's got a dream matchup this week for the Seahawks. You're definitely starting this is the must start of the week. You're starting your Seahawks this week against Oakland. I mean, obviously. The Raiders are 0-7. They're a dumpster fire, as we know. They're the worst team in the league, it seems, outside maybe the Jets and Jacksonville. When I mentioned those three teams, like you're starting your players against, because an automatic start pretty much, because they're just so bad. Russell Wilson is going to have a big week this week. It definitely seems like Marshawn Lynch, they get him more involved. Guys like Doug Baldwin, maybe Jermaine Kearse. These guys for Seattle, you are starting your Seahawks this week, all of them for the most part, unless, guys that aren't involved, against the Oakland Raiders. The guys that you normally rely on for the Seahawks, you start them this week. Brady is third projected, 29 fantasy points. Again, it's going to be a shootout with Denver, New England. Colin Kaepernick's got a dream matchup this week as well for the Niners, going up against St. Louis, projected for 28 points. Again, the Rams now have just been befallen by injuries, mostly on the offensive side of the ball, but their defense is still I think they're last in the league in sacks. St. Louis, now they are good. Now St. Louis defense, they are 11th against the pass, which kind of gives them an edge, but that defense has just been mostly decimated. Kaepernick also has that running ability, and St. Louis is 31st in the league against the run. So Kaepernick might even use his legs a little bit more in this matchup. That's why he's probably projected for such a high total for 28 points. So with that in mind, Kaepernick is definitely a great use this week. You're going to see probably plenty of Frank Gore and Carlos Hyde in that matchup as well at the running backs, because the fact that St. Louis is so porous against Ram. Again, they're suffering on offense. St. Louis now has no Brian Quick, lost for the year their top wide receiver due to a dislocated shoulder and torn rotator cuff, and they just lost Jake Long for the season with a torn ACL. So clearly, it's going to be a mess for St. Louis. Kaepernick is a great option. And fifth is Andrew Luck. And again, why would you not want to keep using Andrew Luck? Considering, even though the Colts offense, even the Colts defense let them down last week in the loss to Pittsburgh, the offense is still clicking along, going strong. Now, Reggie Wayne might miss another week this week. He might still be out again with that elbow issue. You want to keep monitoring that if you're a Wayne owner. But Dante Moncrief filled in amazingly in Wayne's absence. So it's just so nice to see someone else step up. We knew it wasn't going to be Hakeem Nicks. Hakeem Nicks is quickly becoming expendable. He is quickly becoming someone that maybe probably won't last on the roster the rest of the season. He was hoping to come in and revitalize his career. Well, that's clearly not happening. So right now, it's Dante Moncrief who's filling in and doing this job if he plays. Luck is still, it's Monday night, it's prime time. The Colts usually tend to thrive in prime time. Even going up against the Giants in New York, it's going to be a great option. Obviously, you know that the Colts are the top-rated passing offense. The Giants are 25th against the pass, so this is a dream matchup for Luck. Definitely a QB1 option. The next five are Ben Roethlisberger, Carson Palmer, Nick Foles, Andy Dalton, Eli Manning. And obviously, if you need, out of that group, if you need a bye-week filler, I think Andy Dalton certainly could be, if he's likely not out there in a lot of your leagues, but if you need a spot start, it's not normally a guy that's a QB1, Andy Dalton obviously is a great play this week because obviously, again, the Bengals are playing. It's Jacksonville. It's even though Jacksonville's defense has played better of late and the offense is starting to show signs of life, it's still Jacksonville. They're still toward the bottom of the league in mostly every statistical category. 27th in passing defense. They're 20th against the run, but Dalton is going to find a way to carve them up. It's just a given. Even though and if Dalton gets A.J. Green back this week, then obviously he is elite QB1 status if A.J. Green plays. And even if he doesn't, he's still got Mohamed Sanu who's filled in nicely for him. So, he's still got plenty of weapons there. And if Gio Bernard is even out, Jeremy Hill, the rookie out of LSU, is a strong dual threat back as well. So they've got a strong 1-2 punch. This thing is really hurting. A 1-2 punch at running back and wide out. So Dalton is going to benefit immensely. I really, really like Andy Dalton this week as a very high QB1. Big Ben coming off that big week against the Colts. I see no reason to sit him against Baltimore. Even though the Ravens defense is strong, they're rated 8th this week by most projectionists. And Baltimore is 22nd in passing defense. That's their worst statistic. If Big Ben can do what he did to the Colts, imagine what he's going to do against that Ravens secondary. So Big Ben is obviously a strong play this week as well. Carson Palmer, as I've said on here, it's so nice to see him back leading the Cardinals offense. He's projected for 24 points against Dallas. That is certainly feasible because the Cowboys are middling against the D. They're 15th in pass defense. So that's certainly attainable. Again, if you need someone, that's, if by chance Carson Palmer's out there in your league, he's likely not, but if he's by chance out there, he's another guy you can plug in as a great fill-in option as well. I think a high QB2, certainly with upside in this matchup this week. Love Nick Foles' matchup this week going up against the Texans. Yes, I know. J.J. Watt. Okay, he's going to try to make Nick Foles' life miserable, but one player does not make the whole Houston Texans defense. J.J. Watt cannot play in the secondary where the Texans struggle. The Texans are 28th against the pass. Do you really think that that Nick Foles is going to find a way to exploit that? I don't think. Survey says I don't think so. Nick Foles is going to find any way he can with him, with Jeremy Maclin playing at a high level. Darren Sproles maybe coming back this week, so that could be huge. Nick Foles is going to have an immensely amazing game this week. I think he's pretty much a sure thing as you can get out there. Love his matchup this week. And Eli going up against the Colts. Now, here's the thing with Eli Manning. Eli Manning has actually played much better of late. Eli only has like 5 interceptions in the past few games he's played. So clearly he's cutting down the turnovers. Amazingly, he's actually thriving with Victor Cruz being out. Why? Because Ruben Randall is getting looks in the red zone, and Odell Beckham, the rookie out of LSU, has actually taken on that role and is emerging as a quick star in this Giants offense. Plus, he's still got that tight end Larry Donnell. So now the only thing with the Giants is the running game might struggle again this week because, again, no Rashad Jennings. He's guaranteed out this week for the 3rd straight week with that knee issue. So Andre Williams will start at running back for the Giants. So maybe this is, again, a better week to play Eli. I'm a Tony Romo owner, and I'm honestly very concerned about Tony Romo's back situation with that back contusion. I mean, reports are saying he's not practicing, but they're saying, oh no, he'll be fine, he'll play. I'm not so sure. Romo's probably going to be a game-time decision, and that worries me. So I got Eli off waivers to play him this week against the Colts on Monday night. So I think for me, if you can find somebody out there who's like a potential, like a QB2 with upside or a bye-week fill-in, like Eli Manning, heck, even an Alex Smith potentially this week, I think you can plug him in because you don't want to take that chance of, if you're a Romo owner, of Romo ending up with a donut. You don't want that to happen and take that risk. So for me, I think Eli Manning, definitely I think a high, even low 1, high 2 upside this week for Eli. He's projected for 21. I think that could certainly be feasible. Next five are Phillip Rivers, Romo if he's active, Tannehill, Cam Newton, who played last night. So we'll take him off because he played last night. That Saints-Panthers game, by the way, was amazing for New Orleans. If you're a Mark Ingram owner, you're doing jumping jacks this morning. I'm already facing a 23-point deficit thanks to Mark Ingram. Thanks, Mark. So then taking out Newton, then it's Rivers, Romo, Tannehill, RG3, and Joe Flacco. Out of that bunch, obviously, if Romo plays, then he's obviously the safest option. But again, you're really taking a risk if you start Tony Romo and not change your lineup because you don't know what you're going to get. He's missed practice now for I think 2-3 straight days now. So you just don't know. But Jason Garrett is coming out and saying, we think we'll see what there's still 48 hours. We're going to see what we're going to have with him. But just have a backup plan. Have a plan B in case something happens, in case there's a setback, in case he honestly cannot go, and Brandon Weeden has to take over this offense. If Brandon Weeden plays for Dallas, obviously, I think you're gonna see more DeMarco Murray, so his value goes up. Des Bryant's value takes a little bit of a hit, but not very much. I still think Terrence Williams could be a strong play for you. Then I'll think less of Jason Witten because I don't think Weeden involves the tight ends all that much. And obviously, you're not starting Brandon Weeden, so I'm just weary. So obviously, if Romo plays, if we get the green light on him and you can change your lineup late and you can start him, okay. But just be aware that if he doesn't go, have a plan B in place. I like Phillip Rivers' matchup against Miami this week, even though it's in Miami. Here's the thing. The Dolphins, the run defense is very, very strong. Miami is, I mean, they're mid-tier. They're 15th in the league, but they've also been very strong. And Brandon Oliver, the running back, has really been shut down in tough matchups of late. So now don't get me wrong, I'm an Oliver owner. I still like him as an RB2, but it just worries me that he can't find a way to exploit these tough matchups. So I think we're going to see a lot of Phillip Rivers this week. I think his wide receivers are going to slowly bounce back, maybe see more of Keenan Allen. Hopefully Malcolm Floyd continues his uprise. Antonio Gates obviously is a must-start as always. But I like Rivers. I think he's very serviceable as a low 1, high 2 this week for that matchup. In the same game, again, if you need a bye-week fill-in, again, why not go with Tannehill, who is actually having a quite nice season in this Dolphins offense. They are 25th in the league against the 25th in passing offense, but it's not a bad matchup. Now, San Diego is 6th in the league against the pass, so it is kind of tough. Maybe you can't use Tannehill as more like a QB2 or a bye-week replacement, but you could do worse. So there's not a whole lot of options out there. So I really don't hate Ryan Tannehill, but what else is he going to do? You might see a lot of Lamar Miller in that game, maybe. So I like him in terms of running back position. Just QB2, maybe a desperate QB3. Not the best bye-week replacement out there, but you could do worse. He's projected for 20 points, and that in a standard league would certainly pass for a good week. What to make of RG3? He is coming back. He is going to be Washington's starter again. He didn't lose the starting job to Kirk Cousins or Colt McCoy like many of us maybe thought that he would, but he is getting his job back. What do we make of him? On paper, obviously, this is a great matchup. We're going against a Minnesota team. Really their defense has not been strong all year. Now, interesting to note, though, that Minnesota is 4th against the pass. So that is certainly something interesting to note here. And it's RG3's first game back off the dislocated ankle. It's going to be, a lot of people will say, "Oh, I'm excited. I'm going to get RG3 back in my lineup." Slow your roll a little bit. I can't recommend him as a elite must-start option. I can't do that. Maybe, again, a high QB2 is all I'm going to rate RG3 because, again, we want to see what he's doing. He's probably going to be a little bit rusty. First time back. The Vikings DST, I think, then is a great option in this game because of the fact that he's going to be a little bit rusty, coming off that time away, and he's going to be forced probably to run because that pass D is so strong. So just be wary of that. Flacco going up against Pittsburgh. Not a bad matchup, I'd say. At least high on QB2. The Steelers are 19th against the pass. Obviously, Andrew Luck did a great job against them last week, so I think certainly there's value there for Flacco to have a good week. I think that Baltimore-Pittsburgh game it's going to be a shootout. It's always fun when those two get together, so I think it's going to be a fun game. The shootout games, as I mentioned last week, Baltimore-Pittsburgh this week, Denver-New England is going to be fun. Arizona-Dallas. I think those three are really kind of going to be your big shootout games. We're going to want to start a lot of these guys in those matchups, so just keep that in mind. Next 5 after Flacco. All of these next 5 are free agents in my league. So now we're kind of getting into guys that, again, you might use as a bye-week filler or replacement for you. And the top of this next 5 is Alex Smith. And I mentioned Alex Smith, and what better dream matchup can you have than going up against the Jets? The Jets, we know, are a complete mess. Now, again, a strong statistic. They're 14th against the pass. However, the Jets' run D is strong. So we might not see a whole lot of Jamal Charles and Niall Davis. Obviously, they're going to use them, so you probably can't afford to sit Jamal Charles or Niall Davis. But I think the fact that, Alex Smith, Mr. Dink and Dunk, is going to try a lot of things, like that. Or maybe, he might take a few shots downfield. Dwayne Bowe could be a what-the-heck flex. Honestly. I know he hasn't had a lot of touchdown success this season, but maybe just throw him in there and in this matchup and see what happens if you're brave and desperate and want to take a risk. Maybe Dwayne Bowe's not a bad option, but Alex Smith certainly for a bye week filler is a very good option. And Travis Kelce, I think, at tight end is a must-start tight end one. I mean, I think he has come along so well of late that I think he's definitely a strong option in this matchup, especially when the Chiefs get into the red zone. So Alex Smith, I like him. Out of the next four with Hoyer, Glennon, Fitzpatrick, and Michael Vick, I think, you know what? I'm going to go Mike Glennon. Look, yeah, I made the whole rant on Tampa Bay last week about the Tampa whatevers, and they don't know who they are. We don't know. I know that, but here's the thing: some consistency may actually finally be starting to develop. Now, Tampa Bay did not get rid of Doug Martin and Vincent Jackson before the trade deadline, so they're still on the roster. But I think the demotion of those two is already slowly beginning. We're going to see a change at running back. I think, Bobby Rainey, I think, is going to take on the head role. And now they get Charles Sims, the rookie out of West Virginia, off of IR. So now he's going to come in and have probably a role defined. Doug Martin is, I think, no longer fantasy reliable. And Vincent Jackson is really starting to kind of fall, I think, out of favor with the team. Mike Evans, the rookie out of Texas A&M, are getting him more involved on a week-by-week basis. I just picked him up off waivers this week. I really like him going forward as a strong wide receiver 3 on a week-by-week basis. So the matchup isn't exactly isn't exactly as haunting as you might think. Haunting, ha ha ha! I made a Halloween funny, ha ha ha! It's not that bad. Cleveland is 20th, in passing defense. Now, Vincent Jackson is probably going to be shadowed by Joe Hayden, so that might open up opportunities for Mike Evans to succeed. So again, if you need a bye week fill-in for a guy you've normally relied on, or want to take a flyer on, Mike Glennon could be the guy that you're hoping on. Or Brian Hoyer isn't exactly a bad option either. Tampa Bay, not stellar on defense either. They're 30th in the league against the pass. So Brian Hoyer could certainly be a very serviceable high QB2 as well in that same game. I'm not sold on Ryan Fitzpatrick or Michael Vick. Yes, Houston's offense is have weapons at receiver with DeAndre Hopkins, with Andre Johnson, but the Eagles, and yes, the Eagles are 26th in the league against the pass, but there's better options. There's better options out there for you, I think, than Ryan Fitzpatrick. So that's why I'm not sold on him as a great option. And Michael Vick is not going to be much improvement. I mean, yes, obviously he's a big improvement over Geno Smith, but he's not going to bring too much, I think, to the Jets offense. Plus, Kansas City, top-ranked passing defense in the NFL. You're not wanting to take a chance on that with Michael Vick. In his first full game as the starter going up against the Chiefs on the road, I don't think so. So again, really at that point you're digging deep. Don't go Teddy Bridgewater, no Blake Bortles, don't go Derek Carr or Austin Davis. Those four I don't think should be owned or touched in the majority of leagues. All right, moving on now to the running backs.
From Centerville, Ohio. My parents were from West Point graduates. They've always taken the mentality of the Army, which is very strong, very respectful.
Looking forward now to the running backs this week. This thing is just going to bum me like crazy. Moving on now to the running backs. Top 5, again, these guys are no-brainers. And now, surprisingly, again, Jamal Charles is the top option. He's listed for 19 points going up against the Jets. But again, it worries me a little bit because, again, that Jets run defense is so strong. But again, it's Jamal Charles, and you probably cannot afford to sit Jamal Charles. So I'm not going to go on here and say, sit Jamal Charles. No, I'm not going to do that because that'd be stupid. It'd be dumb. But just be aware that, he might not reach that 19-point plateau considering the toughness of the matchup going up against the Jets. So just keep that in mind. DeMarco Murray, again, he's carried your teams all year. Arian Foster, Now, the only concern with Arian Foster is he does have a bit of a knee issue. He was limited in practice. He's listed as questionable right now for this week against Philly, but all signs again are right now are pointing to him playing. Philly is 21st against the run. It's a great matchup for Foster. As long as he's healthy, you're rolling him out as usual. Marshawn, again, start your Seahawks. Marshawn Lynch is 4th. I'm surprised he's not higher going up against Oakland, but probably it's only because sometimes they've cut away from using Marshawn Lynch, so you're definitely starting beast mode this week. And interestingly, that Andre Ellington of the Cardinals is listed 5th. Again, that Arizona-Dallas matchup, you're going to want to start a lot of your players in that Arizona-Dallas matchup, unless, of course, Tony Romo doesn't play. You're not starting Brandon Weeden. So, but, as long as, Ellington, let's see, there's a little plus here by his name. Foot, limited practice, questionable. So right now, he has a bit of so it sounds like right now, a bit of a foot issue. So to just monitor that, because they already don't have Stephon Taylor, so because he's out with a calf problem. So as long as Ellington plays, as long as he's healthy and good to go, he's a great option for this week against Dallas. Dallas is 19th against the run. Not great. So Andre Ellington, great matchup for him. As long as he plays, I think he's a solid RB1 as you can get. I mentioned Lamar Miller in Miami. I think he's a rock-solid RB1 this week. San Diego is yes, they're 14th against the run, but Miami is surprisingly 6th in the league in rushing offense. Lamar Miller is definitely taking advantage of the fact that Noshawn Moreno is done for the year in all likelihood. So he's taking advantage of that, and he's a great matchup with San Diego. Love Lamar Miller this week. Continue to roll with Ronnie Hillman of Denver. I have myself. Look, I'm not afraid if Monty Ball comes back. I'm not afraid of it, and you shouldn't be either, because Monty Ball, as I mentioned countless times on here, has been a monumental bust. He was disappointing last year already. He's disappointing again this year. Now the groin issue, injury riddled. So Ronnie Hillman is clearly the better back. Now there is the nagging shoulder issue. But right now he's expected to play this week. No concern there. You're definitely going with Ronnie Hillman. New England is 25th against the run. It's a great matchup for Ronnie Hillman. Love him as a low RB1, high RB2 this week. Definitely keep Ronnie Hillman in your lineup as long as he plays. Also in that group of 6 through 10 is LaShawn McCoy, Le'Veon Bell, and Ahmad Bradshaw. Those guys, again, are pretty much no-brainers. Obviously, I love McCoy's matchup going up against Houston. Houston does have the 12th rated run defense in the league, but come on, you're not sitting LaShawn McCoy if he's healthy. Even though Darren Sproles may come back this week, you're not sitting LaShawn McCoy. You're not sitting Le'Veon Bell after how red-hot he's been. Now, Baltimore is 7th against the run, so Le'Veon Bell might not have a great week as many might think. He's projected for 13. I think he can at least see maybe either barely double figures or just slightly below that. I don't expect him to carve up the Ravens D. I expect a lot of Big Ben throwing again like we saw last week. So, but you probably can't sit Le'Veon Bell again. I'd say low 1, high 2. Ahmad Bradshaw going up against the Giants. Now Trent Richardson is back at practice, so he might be worked back into the fold this week if he plays. But still, Ahmad Bradshaw is the Colts back to play and to own. The Giants are 22nd against the run. It's a great matchup for the Colts backs. So love Ahmad Bradshaw this week. I would even say high RB1. I think certainly you could put him in as a strong starting option. After Bradshaw was Mark Ingram, and Mark Ingram had an amazing night last night against Carolina. My opponent has Mark Ingram. Put up 23 points in a CBS league. Clearly, again, I mentioned on here in the last video, excuse me, the update video, with Pierre Thomas and Kerry Robinson out, he was going to have a big night. Well, he did. Gosh dang, this thing is like pointing into sticking into my head. It is sticking into my head. What the hell? Is there like a point on the end of this thing?
6 and 7 years old.
Good grief, there's metal sticking into my head. All right, I can't wear the hoodie anymore. Sorry, but there's a metal part sticking into my head, and it's like driving me crazy on that antenna. No wonder it hurts so much. And to think I'm gonna be doing that for 2 hours tonight while giving out candy with a metal thing driving into my head. Yeah, great. Great. But no, Mark Ingram, great week for his fantasy owners this week, as expected. Next five after Ingram are Frank Gore, Alfred Morris, Brandon Oliver, Chris Ivory, and Jerick McKinnon. That to me sounds about right. All five of those guys I think have pretty good matchups, except again for Brandon Oliver. I mentioned, now there's still kind of a lot of debate as to when Donald Brown and Ryan Matthews will come back for San Diego. But I think Oliver's still carved out a very nice role. Even when those guys come, even if when Ryan Matthews comes back, I think Oliver will still take on the Danny Woodhead role, being the dual threat back. So. But I'm not fond. I have no better options this week, so I have to start Brandon Oliver against Miami. But I'm worried about the points he's going to put up because, again, Miami's run D is so strong. So I think Phillip Rivers is going to utilize him more in the dink and dunk role a lot this week. So maybe that's how he'll get his points. So, again, I have him listed as an RB2, and I'm starting him that way. But I'm just a little worried about Brandon Oliver. But I think Frank Gore and Carlos Hyde are going to thrive against St. Louis. I think you can actually get away with using Hyde as an RB3 or a flex because they're starting to use Carlos Hyde more in the San Francisco backfield. They're starting to kind of limit Gore's touches a bit. They're starting to use Carlos Hyde a bit more. So maybe you can use him as an RB3 or a flex this week, considering the good matchup. Alfred Morris, obviously, I think you can use him against Minnesota. Even though the Vikings are 16th against the run, I think you'd be stupid to sit Alfred Morris. He's definitely a strong RB2 this week. Chris Ivory, love his matchup against Kansas City. The Chiefs are 18th against the run. Chris Ivory can be used as a definite RB2 or flex this week. I love him. And obviously Jerick McKinnon. And again in the video last week, you guys watched the video last week, there was a Tampa Bay rant, and there was my profound apology. On my knees to Jerick McKinnon. I was, said, here's the spread. It's all yours. You've won. We sent Matt Asiata Wasamata to Exile Island. And that's the case. Jerick McKinnon now is the lead back in Minnesota. Washington is 17th against the run. This is, again, a great matchup for McKinnon. You can use him definitely as a strong RB2 this week as well. Next five, Shane Vereen, Ben Tate, Justin Forsett, Jeremy Hill, and Carlos Hyde. If Giovanni Bernard is out for Cincinnati, then I think Jeremy Hill becomes a must-play, must-start, low 1, high 2 against Jacksonville. Look, we know the guy's skill set. We know his ability. Clearly a dual threat strength. He can run the ball, but he can also catch it out of the backfield. He's very much like Gio Bernard, so that's a dangerous 1-2 punch that Cincinnati has. But Bernard is dealing with a hip pointer and a clavicle issue, neither of which of those injuries are very pretty. So in all likelihood, if he is out, then Jeremy Hill, if he by some chance is still available in your league, get Jeremy Hill now, pounce on him, and if Gio is out, and even maybe a guy you can stash going forward, but Gio Bernard, if he's out, Jeremy Hill becomes a great play this week against Jacksonville. I mentioned Carlos Hyde. I like him this week as well. I like him as at least an RB3 or a flex. The New England running back situation, obviously I think Shane Vereen is again a no-brainer start. But what do we make of Jonas Gray? What do we make now of him in the New England backfield? It looks like he has taken on the role of Stevan Ridley, who's out for the year with the knee issue. So it looks like he's taken on that role as the kind of the ground and pound guy. But it's Bill Belichick, and anything can happen to New England's running backs. So I thought about picking up Jonas Gray, and then I thought better of it when I saw that Joique Bell was on the wire. So I don't know why someone would put Joique Bell on the wire, but I digress. So I got rid of Jonas Gray, and I got Joique Bell back. So I'm not sure. I'm just worried about New England's running back situation. So Vereen, I think, is right now the only really New England back you can trust. But if you want to take a flyer, if you want to take a chance, see what happens, like a running back 3-4 flex, what the heck, you take your shot on Jonas Gray if you must. But I'm just really worried about that. I'm also worried about Cleveland's running back situation. I mean, it seems like Ben Tate is the only guy there you can trust right now because this game of running back roulette that I've had to play most of the year myself at fantasy, but Mike Pettin just keeps tossing the ball onto the roulette wheel and and where does it stop? Oh, we're playing Isaiah Crowell as a number 2 this week. And then next week, toss the ball. Oh, now it's Terrence West. And oh, Terrence West then is a healthy scratch. And oh, now Crowell doesn't get much work. Oh, now we say it's because of his fumbling issues. Oh, we want to give him, stop playing running back roulette, Mike Pettin. It stinks for us fantasy owners when you do that. Don't do that. Because so obviously right now you can't trust Isaiah Crowell. You can't trust Terrence West because of all this. Ben Tate's the only guy you can trust. Now the matchup is great. Tampa Bay's 23rd against the run. So Ben Tate, are you starting him? Absolutely. But are you even touching Isaiah Crowell and Terrence West with a 39.5-foot pole? No, we are not, because this game of Russian roulette is continuing. So I don't trust him right now. I just dropped Isaiah Crowell this week. I don't trust him. In Baltimore, with Justin Forsett and Talaferro, again, that's kind of a mess too. Now, Justin Forsett was limited in practice with an ankle issue. He's listed as questionable right now, but I expect him to play. He's the top running back in Baltimore. The Steelers are 11th against the run, so that is a very tough matchup for Justin Forsett. But I don't think you can afford to sit him. If he plays, I'd say high RB2. Lorenzo Talaferro, who looks like he's become now the touchdown vulture, maybe a what-the-heck RB3 or a flex. And Bernard Pierce is unusable at this point. I think clearly Talaferro, if I can say it, has leapfrogged Bernard Pierce as a number 2 option in Baltimore. Talaferro. Talaferro is always any Italian name is always tough to say. Talaferro, but Talaferro. Okay. But bottom line, I like Justin Forsett, RB2, Talaferro, RB3, or flex. Next 5 after Carlos Hyde are Denard Robinson, Bobby Rainey, Trent Richardson, Talaferro, and Jonathan Stewart, who played last night. Love Denard Robinson. Shoelace, watch this guy at Michigan. Yes, he was a quarterback, but he has clearly thrived in Jacksonville's backfield, where Toby Gerhart failed miserably. Thanks a lot, Toby, my 4th-round draft pick. Where Storm Johnson failed, Denard Robinson has clearly taken over, is clearly the more explosive back in the Jacksonville backfield. Now, and the matchup really with with Cincinnati is actually pretty good. The Bengals aren't good at stopping the run. The Bengals are 29th against the run. So, if you need a fill-in at running back with an RB2-3 upside, I think Denard Robinson is certainly a usable option this week, considering this great matchup. Even though Jacksonville's on the road, I think he's certainly a very usable option for you. Again, I mentioned Talaferro. Again, RB3 or flex. Richardson, it looks like he's going to play. Now that he's back in practice. But again, you can't really rate him as anything more than a desperate, again, RB3 or flex 2 because of the fact that, he's just so inconsistent. He doesn't pile up the yardage. He's very touchdown dependent, so not sold on him. Now, Bobby Rainey, I mentioned Bobby Rainey and how he's now probably going to become a starting option in Tampa Bay. And the matchup is great with Cleveland. So, again, if you're hurting at running back, you need a serviceable RB2 or 3 for a fill-in. I think Bobby Rainey is certainly a very serviceable option as well. If I were to rate those 4, I would go Robinson, Talaferro, Rainey, and then Richardson. That's how I would rate those 4 if those guys are out there for some chance on selling your free agent wire. So again, after Jonathan Stewart, who played last night, it's a pretty big drop-off. Next 5 after Stewart, again, we're getting really into desperate guys at this point. Guys like Darren McFadden, Jawan Thompson, Jonas Gray, mentioned him, Andre Williams, Tavares Cadet, who played last night. You're not starting Darren McFadden against the Seahawks. It's just not going to happen. Yes, he's the lead back in Oakland, but Seattle is 6th against the run. They're strong across the board in defense. You're not starting him against Seattle. Again, I'm not sold on Jonas Gray, not sold on a New England back outside of Shane Vereen. Jawan Thompson, us Ronnie Hillman owners, we do not like Jawan Thompson. We don't, because he vultures touchdowns from him. He took 2 touchdowns away from Ronnie Hillman last week, so we were not happy with that. So he's very touchdown dependent. Can't use him as anything more than a flex. And Andre Williams of the Giants will get the start against the Colts this week, but the problem is number one, the Colts are 9th against the run, so tough matchup, and the fact that Andre Williams isn't exactly a speedster. He's more of a plotter. He's not like a Rashad Jennings that can cut and is fast. He's more of a plotter. So I'm not really sold on Andre Williams. If you're desperate, maybe an RB3, but not sold on him. And again, after that, it's a very big drop-off. Guys, I really can't, recommend. Gio Bernard is projected for 5 points. This probably means he's not expected to play, so not going with him. So yeah, after that, you're not starting anyone really below outside of probably after Andre Williams is where the bottom of the barrel is at. Okay, moving on then to the wideouts. Moving on to wide receivers for the week. Top 5 options this week. These guys, again, no-brainers. The way that they've been playing all season and of late. Antonio Brown, obviously, the way Big Ben's playing in Pittsburgh. If he, carved up the Colts last week, I expect similar results against Baltimore with Antonio Brown. Obviously, is a must-start. Also, the emergence of Martavis Bryant, the rookie out of Clemson. What a job he has done of late. I'm thinking that if he keeps up this consistency with Big Ben, Martavis Bryant could potentially be a strong wide receiver 3 for the rest of the season. So I like what I'm seeing out of him. If he's available in your league, snatch him up, get Martavis Bryant. I think he could pay dividends down the stretch as well. Again, you're starting your Bronco receivers. Maybe not Wes Welker, but you're definitely starting Demaryius Thomas. You're starting Emmanuel Sanders. You're starting tight end Julius Thomas. I'm still not sold on Welker, so I think he's not a high-end option. But Thomas and Sanders are no-brainer wide receiver 1s. I mentioned Jeremy Maclin. The consistency he's developing with Nick Foles is amazing this year. Now that he is a top option, no Deshaun Jackson, the shadow to hide behind anymore. He's clearly the top option now in Philly. Love the matchup this week going up against Houston. A.J. Green is 4th. Great time to get him back if he does play. He still is ruled as questionable this week with that toe issue. So, again, you'll want to monitor that if you're an owner of A.J. Green. But if he does play, obviously, an elite QB1 in this matchup against Jacksonville, just monitor it. If he's out again, obviously, Mohamed Sanu once again becomes a nice, very nice wide receiver 2 play this week as well. And T.Y. Hilton. T.Y. Hilton is becoming, for me, a stud wide receiver. I have him and Dez Bryant, and Baldwin and Mike Evans. So now I'm pretty much set at wide receiver for the rest of the season. But T.Y. Hilton is emerging as a stud. He might not score a whole lot of touchdowns, but man, oh man, does he pile up the yardage in that Colts offense. Projected for 15 this week against the Giants. Could even exceed that, considering the Giants are so bad against the pass. So T.Y. Hilton's going to have a huge week for you. No reason to sit T.Y. Hilton. Even if Moncrief has emerged as a good option. Love T.Y. Hilton. 6 through 10, Emmanuel Sanders, Mike Wallace, Deshaun Jackson, Dez Bryant, and Anquan Bolden. Obviously, again, I mentioned Emmanuel Sanders as a must-start. Mike Wallace, obviously, he's projected for 14 against San Diego. And, again, the matchup is tough considering San Diego does have the 6th-ranked pass defense. But, again, there's not a whole lot of weapons there in Miami outside of, for Tannehill to throw to. Mike Wallace is his number 1 option. So there's not a whole lot there. So, really, again, you can't afford to sit Mike Wallace. It's just going to be tough. I think, again, though, I'm just concerned we're going to see a lot of Lamar Miller in that game because of the tough matchup. So, but, again, you probably can't afford to sit Mike Wallace. I have him as wide receiver 2 just because of the tough matchup. But, again, who else is Ryan Tannehill going to throw to? Deshaun Jackson of Washington. Washington receivers get huge rise in value now that RG3 is back. Deshaun Jackson, Pierre Garçon, Jordan Reed at tight end. All these guys are going to get huge upticks in value now that RG3 is back. Not that Kirk Cousins and Colt McCoy were doing a very bad job, but they're used to their starter. They're used to having that rapport with him. So huge upside for them. Again, now the matchup is tough. Minnesota is 4th against the pass, but you're not sending Deshaun Jackson. You're going to keep rolling with him, and I think you continue to go with Pierre Garçon as well. Obviously, Dez Bryant, regardless of matchup, regardless of situation, Dez Bryant is like unsittable. I don't know if that's even a word, unsittable, but To me, I think he's unsittable. Now, obviously, value goes down a little bit if Romo doesn't play, but come on, he's their top receiver. You know, he's still going to be relied upon for a big game. Des Bryant is going to be okay. And the 49er receivers, you know, Anquan Bolden, Michael Crabtree, they're going to be, you know, great matchup against St. Louis. You know, even though the Rams are decent against the pass, they're 11th against it. You know, we're still going to see the San Francisco offense thrive. Great matchup again. I think a strong wide receiver 1-2 option for you. 11 through 15, Larry Fitzgerald, Mohamed Sanu, Steve Smith, DeAndre Hopkins, Kelvin Benjamin. Benjamin played last night. And actually, Kelvin Benjamin, not a very great game. He got completely shut down by the Saints. But again, the Panthers' offense mostly got completely shut down by the Saints, so surprisingly. So that was certainly a big surprise for Kelvin Benjamin owners. But out of that next group of 4, obviously, again, it boils down to A.J. Green. If he is out, then obviously Mohamed Sanu is going to benefit. Now, even if Green plays, considering this bad matchup with Jacksonville, maybe you find Mohamed Sanu is still going to benefit. So if Green plays, and I think Sanu's value takes a bit of a hit, you know, maybe down to at least a low 2, high 3. But if Green is out, then obviously Sanu, I think, is a rock-solid wide receiver 2 as they come. You're obviously starting Larry Fitzgerald. I think at this point, that's a no-brainer. Carson Palmer back under center is great for him. And if I were to choose between Steve Smith and DeAndre Hopkins, I would honestly go with DeAndre Hopkins of Houston. Look, the matchup is not that strong. Philly's pass D is toward the bottom of the league, and DeAndre Hopkins is finally thriving in this Houston offense under center. I think he's usurped Andre Johnson as the main top wide receiver in Houston. So I think certainly he is very usable this week. I would say even a wide receiver 2 with upside because the matchup is great. He's done well all year, and I think Houston's gonna have to throw in order to keep up with Philly. So it's not going to be all Arian Foster. So they're going to have to throw the football. So I like DeAndre Hopkins this week as a wide receiver 2. Steve Smith of Baltimore, maybe more of a 2-3. You know, Pittsburgh's defense, yeah, they're not great against the pass. They're 19th. And Flacco's probably going to have to throw to keep up in this game as well. But it's very hit or miss. Is it going to be Steve Smith? Is it going to be Torrey Smith? Which Smith is going to lead the way each week? We don't know. So that's just very tough for me. So more of a 2-3 in my book. Next 5, Michael Floyd, Doug Baldwin, Brandon Cooks played last night, Keenan Allen, Ruben Randall. Again, I love Doug Baldwin. I love what he's starting to do in Seattle. Obviously now that Percy Harvin is gone and now is in New York, Baldwin now I think is the top option in Seattle. I've read a lot of pundits out there that are not sold on Doug Baldwin. The writing is a different Seattle wide receiver leads the team in receiving each week. No, wrong answer. Doug Baldwin has received the most targets the last 2 weeks. He's got the most yardage the last 2 weeks. Jermaine Kearse and Paul Richardson, yeah, they've got targets on their way, but not as many as Doug Baldwin. I don't think that's true at all. I think you're just trying to pull words out of thin air to get people not to start Doug Baldwin. Be a Baldwin believer. Be a believer. Be a believer in this guy. I am. He's my number 3 option. I'm starting him this week against the Raiders. He's going to have a big, big week. I believe in Doug Baldwin. I don't know why some people are not sold on Doug Baldwin. If I'm wrong on that after this week, okay, I'll do a whole spiel on Doug Baldwin. But I believe in Doug Baldwin. Michael Floyd had a donut last week, and that was very beneficial for me because we played a guy last week that had Torrey Smith and Michael Floyd, and they both put up donuts last week, so that was huge in my win last week. But Michael Floyd is battling a knee issue for Arizona. He's listed as probable this week against Dallas, but again, you can't really afford to sit Michael Floyd. He is getting involved in the Cardinals offense. He gets value back with Carson Palmer under center. Low 2, high 3, I'll say, for Michael Floyd. Brandon Cooks, by the way, they were pretty limited last night. Colson and Cooks only got 3 catches last night, so again, that was kind of a surprise. That game, really, with the Saints and the Panthers, was uglier than I thought it was going to be. I was quite surprised. The only really big player that big night was Mark Ingram, so I was quite surprised about everybody else. I mentioned Keenan Allen, how he might, bounce back this week. Again, San Diego is going to have to throw, I think, against Miami. So Keenan Allen might get a touchdown. He might bounce back. So again, wide receiver, I'll say a wide receiver 2-3 for Keenan Allen. And Ruben Randall, I like Ruben Randall this week. I think, again, he's getting looks in the red zone. Eli's bouncing back at quarterback. No Victor Cruz. So I like Ruben Randall as a strong wide receiver 3 with upside. I think he's going to have actually a pretty decent game going up against the Colts passing D that is 21st in the league. So I like Ruben Randall. I think he's going to put up some decent numbers. After Randall, next 5, Terrence Williams, Brandon LaFell. Notice I'm not gritting my teeth, and I'll explain that. Michael Crabtree, Martavius Bryant, I mentioned him, and Andrew Hawkins. I guess I can no longer grit my teeth when I say Brandon LaFell. For now. Because apparently he's found the right situation in New England. Maybe he was never comfortable in Carolina with Cam Newton throwing in the ball. Maybe he wasn't in a good situation. Maybe he just needed a change of space, a change of scenery. So clearly he's emerging as a strong weapon in New England. Now, some are saying that he has overtaken Julian Edelman. I don't know about that yet, but certainly if you need a wide receiver 3, if you need someone that's going to maybe produce in a big matchup with us against Denver, maybe you look at Brandon LaFell as a what-the-heck wide receiver 3. I think certainly he's starting to develop of late. I hate to say it. I hate to admit it, but he's usable. In fantasy, Brandon LaFell is actually usable. Oh my gosh. I never thought I would say it. Are you really saying that, man? Are you really saying that Brandon LaFell is actually usable for fantasy purposes? What is wrong with your brain? No, calm down, legs. I'm actually saying it, that Brandon LaFell, for now, I emphasize for now, is actually usable for fantasy purposes. Wide receiver 3. You can use him against Denver. Never thought that would happen. Terrence Williams, I briefly mentioned him. I think he's usable as a wide receiver 3 against Arizona, no matter who's under center. Mentioned Crabtree, mentioned Bryant. I think they're certainly usable as well. Andrew Hawkins of Cleveland, I think he's emerged as Cleveland's top wide receiver. Maybe a what-the-heck wide receiver 3. Definitely, I think, a strong flex play, though, in PPR leagues because Hawkins is getting a lot of the targets, a lot of the receptions. So I think certainly he's usable in that regard as well for this matchup with Tampa Bay, who, again, is 30th against the pass. So I like Andrew Hawkins. This next group, these first 2 I love as starting options this week as wide receiver 2 or 3s. Mike Evans and Odell Beckham. I mentioned these 2 guys. I think Mike Evans will eventually be the top wide receiver in Tampa Bay. I think Vincent Jackson starting again to fall out of favor. Evans is even projected for more points this week than Vincent Jackson. So that doesn't tell you, that there's the consistency. I don't know what will, but love Mike Evans. I think he'll be a strong wide receiver 3 or even 4 the rest of the year. I like him. I mentioned Odell Beckham coming on strong in the Giants. After that, Andre Johnson, Pierre Garçon, and then there's Vincent Jackson. Again, obviously, Andre Johnson, I think, is obviously a must-start. As long as he's healthy, I think you can start him. Pierre Garçon, you're starting him. But Vincent Jackson, I'm worried about. Again, because of the fact that I like Mike Evans more, I'm really worried about Jackson falling out of favor with Tampa Bay. You probably can't afford to sit Vincent Jackson, but just be aware that his numbers have gone downhill of late. So now he is dealing with a rib issue as well. He is questionable this week for the Cleveland game. So if Vincent Jackson doesn't play, then obviously Mike Evans' value skyrockets and could even be a rock-solid wide receiver 2 or 3. So just keep that in mind and monitor that going forward. Next 5, Julian Edelman, Allen Robinson, John Brown, Cordero Patterson, Stevie Johnson. Out of that bunch, again, I'll surprise you guys. I will go with John Brown of Arizona as, to me, the best of that bunch. Look, again, Carson Palmer back under center, playing Dallas on the road. Dallas might not have Tony Romo. Dallas is 15th against the pass. He's getting Brown more involved in the passing game. This guy is the speedster out of Pittsburgh State that got rave reviews when he was drafted. What more do you need? He's now he is very touchdown dependent. I will say that, but if he can break off the big yardage. So just keep that in mind. If you're in desperate need of a wide receiver 3 or 4, or even a bye week filler this week, I think John Brown can be very serviceable. I'll rate him 1. I'll hesitantly rate Cordero Patterson 2, but man, Cordero Patterson has really struggled this season and really, I think, fallen out of favor a little bit in Minnesota. And the fact that Washington's so strong against the pass, I think they're going to use Patterson again in that Percy Harvin role, more of an explosive, player. But, who knows? We'll see what happens with him. I'll rate Edelman 3. I'll rate Robinson 4. I'm not thrilled with Jacksonville's wide receiving core. And then Stevie Johnson at the bottom at 5. After that, again, it's a pretty big drop-off. I really can't recommend any of these guys after that. Maybe Malcolm Floyd gets a touchdown against Miami. But I'm not rating Eric Decker. Obviously, I mentioned that I don't like Welker. You're not starting your Raider wide receivers against Seattle. Torrey Smith, Dwayne Bowe. Maybe, again, Dwayne Bowe gets a touchdown or yardage maybe. But not Akeem Nicks, Greg Jennings, Riley Cooper, Miles Austin, all these guys. Now, Dante Moncrief is projected for only 5 points this week. But, again, if Reggie Wayne is out, then I think Dante Moncrief could benefit. So maybe you could use him. But then after that, I really can't highly recommend anybody else from the wide receiver list. Okay, moving on now to the tight ends. What the heck is on my TV? I was watching the BTN thing on Michigan, but they're doing something completely different now. Tight ends, top 5, obviously, or top 4 now that Olsen's already played. But these guys, you're definitely rolling out this week. And actually, Jimmy Graham already played too. So Jimmy Graham was listed 2nd. He scored a touchdown. He looked like his old self. And Greg Olsen was rated 5th. He caught 3 passes, but again, that Carolina offense was mostly shut down for the most part. Gronk, Julius Thomas, Antonio Gates are in the top 3 now. They're your must-starting options. They've carried teams all season. Now, Julius Thomas, I'm a Julius Thomas owner, and I admit I'm a little frustrated of late that he has struggled, only 2 points the last 2 weeks. But here's the thing. When the Patriots, at some point the Broncos are going to get down the red zone, and who are they going to look for? They're going to look for Julius Thomas. It's a given. This is going to be a shootout game with Denver, New England. Don't panic. Don't get cute, as Matthew Berry would say. You're going to, shout out Matthew. I read your column all the time. So just don't panic on Julius Thomas. Keep him in. You're starting him. Don't be that panicky owner. Be smart about it. Keep rolling with Julius Thomas. After that, the next 5, 6 through 10, Dwayne Allen, Travis Kelce, Vernon Davis, Timothy Wright, and Larry Donnell. Out of that bunch, I'm going to say I like Travis Kelce the most. Again, the matchup is great with the Jets. Alex Smith is Mr. Dink and Dunk passer. He's going to look for Travis Kelce at times, especially in the red zone. He's emerged as a strong red zone option. So, obviously, I think he's going to benefit this week from this great matchup with the Jets. So, love Travis Kelce. I think he's definitely a high 1 this week. Same goes for Dwayne Allen. Andrew Luck is looking Dwayne Allen's way more and more all the time in the red zone, so that's huge for his owners. So I think he is a definite rock solid tight end 1 this week. Vernon Davis, great matchup. You usually roll with Vernon Davis anyway as long as he's healthy, so he's a strong tight end 1. And again, if it were me, if I had to choose between the next 3, I'm looking at the next 3 here. If I were to choose between Tim Wright, Larry Donnell, and Jason Witten, I would honestly go with Larry Donnell of the Giants because, again, the Colts pass D is nothing special, 21st. It's a prime time. It's Monday night. The Giants are going to want to impress. They're not going to want to get, their doors blown off. They're going to want to play well at home on national television. So, and, who does usually Eli Manning look for in the red zone? It's either Ruben Randall or it's Larry Donnell. So, I think he's going to continue to play well. I have him as a low 1, high 2. I think he's very usable this week. I'll put him 1. I'll put Wright 2. Maybe he vultures a touchdown. And Jason Witten, though, don't get me wrong, still a good tight end in Dallas, but man, he is so inconsistent. There's so many mouths to feed in Dallas with Murray running strong. and Bryant and Terrence Williams. There's just too many mouths to feed in Dallas for Jason Witten to really have consistent top looks. So maybe a tight end 2, but nothing higher than that, unfortunately, for Jason Witten. After that, next 5, Zach Ertz, Luke Wilson, Jordan Reed, Heath Miller, Jace Amaro. I think Luke Wilson and the Seahawks is usable this week. Going up against, again, the great matchup with Oakland. I think Luke Wilson is at least a low 1, high 2. Again, there's a lot of mouths to feed in Seattle now, but I think, again, in the red zone, if the opportunity's there, Russell Wilson tends to look to the other Wilson's way. So the Wilson with 2 L's. So I think he's very usable. I love Zach Ertz this week. Again, great matchup with Houston. I think also I'll rate him as probably a low 1, high 2 as well. You got to like Jordan Reed with RG3 back. So I think he's excuse me, very usable. Not fond of Heath Miller. Too inconsistent for my take. Very inconsistent. And obviously not starting Jason Morrow because, again, the Jets offense, it's going to be, I think, a lot of Chris Ivory until Michael Vick gets comfortable. After him, no one really recommended to use after that. That's really where the bottom of the barrel falls out. All right, real quick, kickers and defenses. I don't know why this is running so slow either. Kickers that I like for the week, again, obviously, in the really good matchups, you got to like a lot of these guys. The Denver-New England game, you're using your kickers. You're using Gostkowski. You're using Brandon McManus in this matchup, obviously. Hauschka, Seattle, dream matchup against Oakland. You're using him. I would say the Arizona-Dallas game, Chandler Catanzaro, Dan Bailey. You can definitely go with those guys. Cairo Santos, the Chiefs against the Jets. Hello, dream scoring matchup, so you can use him. Phil Dawson of the Niners. Cody Parkey of the Eagles. The Baltimore-Pittsburgh game, Justin Tucker, Sean Sweesom. You can probably roll out those guys in this matchup as well. Mike Nugent of Cincinnati against Jacksonville. Hello, Jacksonville. You can definitely go with him. I think you can might even use Blair Walsh of Minnesota and Kai Forbath of Washington. I think that game could potentially present some high field goal chances as well. Other than that, that's really probably all I'm going to recommend. Everyone else is going to be either on a bye or does not have a very strong matchup. And then finally, the DSTs. Looking at those, top 5 options, 49ers, Seahawks, Chiefs, Bengals, Browns, no-brainers there, all great matchups. I think they're all going to have high numbers. I'm going to say probably the Bengals are going to be number 1 by the end of the week because, again, it's Jacksonville. Maybe the Seahawks number 2. I'll say Chiefs 3, Browns, maybe 49ers 4, Browns 5. It's going to be close. It's going to be a toss-up, but all those 5 are strong options. Eagles against Houston obviously is also strong. Now, I mentioned a couple free agents out there, Washington, Minnesota. Either of them, I think, are actually pretty serviceable options because, again, RG3 back from his first game, Teddy Bridgewater, the rookie. So both of those can actually be pretty, there's opportunity for sacks, maybe interceptions, turnovers. So the point opportunities are there for both those teams. You could possibly use those guys as bye-week replacements this week. But again, after Washington, you're not really going to have, very many recommended plays after that. Maybe you can bank on the Colts against the Giants if you think Eli Manning's going to commit turnovers. Maybe. Buccaneers against Cleveland actually isn't very bad either. I mean, again, as a bye-week filler, as a what-the-heck throw in there, see what happens. Because Cleveland exactly isn't, a juggernaut on offense, and the running game has had issues. But again, after that, really can't recommend anyone of substance. You're definitely not starting the DSTs in the high-octane games, like Arizona, Dallas, Denver, New England, Pittsburgh, Baltimore. Maybe you start Baltimore just because the Ravens get turnovers, but not Pittsburgh. So that's just saying. All right, guys, that is it. That is it for the Week 9 preview, Halloween edition. Thank you guys so much, as always, for being so supportive and understanding. I really appreciate that, as always. For you guys to keep, watching and following through and watching every week. Go out there and get a win this week. Good luck in week 9. Go get it. And thank you guys again. I will check my Gmail today, tomorrow, leading up to Sunday. So again, if you have comments, questions, feel free to leave them down below in that little comment box right below. Or you can leave them on my channel as well. My Gmail will get them. So let me know if you guys have any thoughts on any players, those tight lineup decisions heading in this week. Thank you guys again, and we will see you next week when we hit double digits into the week 10, the week 10 preview edition of the FFSR for your team, your game, your league, your home. You know where it's at. Good luck, guys, and God bless.